My name is Andrew F. Carter, and I am an author, influencer, and minister, and I'm in Los Angeles, California. So my life before knowing that, I could spark change and I could be a world changer is I grew up in foster care. Both of my parents were drug addicts, struggled with addiction for the vast majority of my life. And I bounced around from home to home. And at a young age, I actually experimented with drugs and alcohol and sex. I really mimicked the environment that I grew up in. It was monkey see, monkey do. And so I found myself trying my hand at the things that I saw the influential adults in my life doing. At 17 years old, I was encouraged to say the Lord's Prayer. Somebody broke something down for me. And it was just that the way I was living was filled with sin. The way that I was living was contrary to, the purpose that I was created for. And I wish I could say at 17, I completely changed my life and, the rest was history. But there was years of toxic behavior that needed to change. There were these defense mechanisms that were in place from, growing up in a traumatic environment that were really deep-seated and needed to be healed. And I needed to grow and they needed to be rooted out. And so it took quite a bit of time for me to learn and to grow and to change the person that I was. And it comes from a lot of mistakes and failures and a lot of trial and error. One of the more pivotal moments of my life is I was 23 years old. I had had a couple run-ins with the law. I was still trying to get back on track, but I found myself married. I had 2 kids at the time, and I was attending church. And there was revival in this church. And it was a 7-day revival where we were fasting and praying. And an evangelist came to town. And this evangelist was held in such high esteem that when he spoke over somebody's life, like we could watch it happen. We watched it come to pass. But on the 7th day of revival, the very last day, I was hoping that I would get a word, and I got one. He called me up to the front of the church after the service and said, "Andrew, you have words of gold, and you've been called to ministry, and that you will speak to millions of people about Jesus." And at the time, I thought that was absurd because in that moment, I had MySpace and I had about 17, maybe 13, 14, 15, a handful of people who were all friends and family. So when this man told me I was going to speak to millions of people about Jesus and that I, had been called to ministry, words of gold, I didn't like talking to people. I didn't know millions of people. And so that was a moment where I completely walked away from ministry, walked away from the path that my life was on. I pursued my own dream and vision, which was going to school. I ended up earning 2 college degrees. I played college basketball. I started my own business. And for a kid who had come up the way that I did, I was finding success. I was accumulating accolades and achievements. I was doing well according to the eyes of this world. I had this picture perfect life on Instagram. It was a highlight reel. I had the wife, I had the kids, I had the home, I had the business. I was in the Chamber of Commerce. But what people weren't able to see is that behind the scenes, I walked away from my calling. Behind the scenes, I was broken. I was empty. I was lost. I hadn't healed or grown past the trauma or the issues that I experienced growing up. I was so filled with anger and hatred and violence, self-loathing even. I ended up losing everything. I lost everything in a blink of an eye moment. I was sent to prison for 18 months. And in that time, I lost my family. I lost my business. I lost my reputation. Everything that I had worked so hard to, achieve was gone in the blink of an eye. For the first, year after returning home from prison was a life filled with searching, longing, trying to find the meaning, trying to rebuild my life from all of the things that I lost. And, I found myself at a crossroads. I could see myself going back down the same path that had led me to prison, right? I wasn't doing the healing. I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't growing. And I was still running from the calling that was spoke over my life when I was 23 years old. And so on this fateful day, that I like to call it, is my kids had me download an app. Right? At the time, I was in social media. I was working on creating and building a platform for my fitness business. And my kids had me download TikTok. And, initially the first couple of videos were us dancing and having a good time and joking around, doing what, TikTok was designed to do. But one night I found myself in a really low place. I was kind of contemplating my life, where I was going, what I was doing. Again, I noticed myself back on this same path of destruction, poor decisions, poor choices, no healing. And so I shared something very personal, very vulnerable and transparent. I shared with my audience on TikTok, and at the time I had about 200 followers. I shared with them things that God has taken me through. And I pointed at a couple of boxes. I didn't say a word. I went to bed that night with 200 followers, and I woke up the next morning with over 15,000. And it wasn't the number that was so astonishing, but it was the response to the video that really touched me and set my life on a different path. So if I could wave a magic wand and fill this world with one piece of advice, that you only have 24 hours in a day, right? Make the absolute most of it. If people could know one thing, it's that, yesterday has come and gone. You can't change your past. You can't change your mistakes or your failures. And tomorrow is yet to come. And it's filled with worry, and it's filled with, other issues and obstacles that you're going to face in that moment. But the 24 hours that you have today is up to you to make the absolute most of it. So that thing that you're waiting to get started, that thing that, you're putting on the back burner, that thing that you're procrastinating to get going, don't wait. Get started in this moment. It's the moment, the only moment that we have, right? We call it the present because it's just that, it's a gift.